up doing the things that kids in Brown County today do, enjoying sports like baseball, as well as hunting and fishing as a teenager. He spent his entire education in Brown County schools and was a member of the first graduating class from Brown County High School in 1966. While in school, he was known as the type of person with whom everyone could get along. He was friendly and a happy kid that everyone liked, including the ladies who found him to be quite handsome. His sister Sandy Summers described him as being a big kidder and someone who made everyone feel important no matter who you were. His uplifting spirit put others at ease. Favorite classes were woodshop and metal shop, where he helped many other students hone their craft and even lobbied the principal to allow girls to enroll in the courses, as they weren't allowed during this time. A mechanically minded student, Larry had a natural ability to maintain and rebuild automobiles, which he enjoyed doing with his father, who played a major influence in his life. The Vietnam conflict was an ongoing war taking place 8,566 miles from Brown County, Indiana, on the other side of the world. Larry believed strongly in the ideals of the United States and was a true patriot, which is why he did not hesitate to join the effort when it came time for the United States to enter this conflict. Larry's father volunteered in World War II and was enlisted in the 26th Infantry, known as the Blue Spaders, inspiring Larry to volunteer in the same division in the conflict of his generation. Larry left for Vietnam the day before his 19th birthday. After only 28 days in Vietnam, Larry was killed in an ambush while on patrol in a rubber tree plantation that was located northwest of Saigon. During this patrol, Private First Class Banks was with a machine gunner and an assistant machine gunner carrying extra ammunition. When the machine gunner was taken out, Larry and a fellow soldier, John Young, did not hesitate to act. With no regard for their personal safety, they stayed out in the open and picked up the gun, continuing to fire at the enemy, allowing their fellow squad members to escape, and melting the barrel out of the gun before being overrun. Both men were killed during this battle and were posthumously awarded the Bronze Star for Valor for their efforts. As Larry's award of the Bronze Star Medal statement reads, his bold initiative and dauntless courage significantly contributed to the withdrawal of the other members of his squad. First Class Banks' outstanding display of aggressiveness, devotion to duty, and personal bravery is in keeping with the finest traditions of military service and reflects great credit upon himself. Although Larry's service was cut short, the war continued until 1973 when American troops were withdrawn. Larry was the only soldier from Brown County to perish in the conflict. In 1994, Larry's high school classmates Michael O'Hara, Gus Schroeder, George Miller, and Lee Nygaard submitted a proposal with the support of the community to name the gymnasium in Larry's honor. The gym was dedicated on Veterans Day of the same year. In another effort to memorialize Larry and other Brown County veterans, it was decided that every year the flags in Nashville would be lowered to half-mast from November 7th until November 11th, each day commemorating one of the 5 major conflicts of the 20th century. Larry C. Banks' legacy extends not only to the gymnasium at Brown County High School, but also to the Larry C. Banks Scholarship Fund. The scholarship funds Brown County graduates going to vocational training, as that is likely what Larry would have done. Students who receive the scholarship pursue careers as dental hygienists, veterinary assistants, diesel mechanics, and more. To this day, a little more than $20,000 has been awarded to over 17 individuals. 50 years ago, Larry Banks bravely paid the ultimate sacrifice. Larry was not a celebrity, he wasn't anyone famous, he was just a boy from Brown County. Yet he died defending our country and upholding the beliefs of democracy and patriotism. Today, his memory lives on every day as students enter Brown County High School's gymnasium. It will continue to live on long after current students graduate, pursue their dreams, and fulfill their life goals. As long as the Larry C. Banks Memorial Gymnasium stands, so too will Larry's legacy. Because as someone once said, no one is ever really dead until they are forgotten. Brown County High School's Larry C. Banks Memorial Gymnasium plays a larger role in our community than just being a gym. It's a place where high-stakes basketball games are played and won, where volleyball players challenge each other, where we cheer, where we compete, where we get pumped for big games, and where we learn valuable lessons from others. This is a place where students embark on the next stage of their life, and where we celebrate those who have sacrificed so much for our freedoms. All of these important and memorable moments took place and will continue to take place in the Larry C. Banks Memorial Gymnasium. But who was Larry C. Banks? Larry was born on September 21, 1948 in Brown County, Indiana. He grew up doing the things that kids in Brown County today do, enjoying sports like baseball, as well as hunting and fishing as a teenager. He spent his entire education in Brown County schools and was a member of the first graduating class from Brown County High School in 1966. While in school, he was known as the type of person with whom everyone could get along. He was friendly and a happy kid that everyone liked, including the ladies who found him to be quite handsome. His sister Sandy Summers described him as being a big kidder and someone who made everyone feel important no matter who you were. His uplifting spirit put others at ease. Favorite classes were woodshop and metal shop, where he helped many other students hone their craft, and he could lobby the principal to allow girls to enroll in the courses, as they weren't allowed during this time.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome you all to our annual Brown County Schools Veterans Day program in the Larry C. Banks Memorial Gymnasium. My name is Laura Hammock and I serve as the superintendent of this extraordinary district. It is certainly appropriate that we are gathered in the Larry C. Banks Memorial Gymnasium today. Larry C. Banks is one of Brown County's greatest heroes, and while we certainly wish that he was joining us here today, I am confident that he is here in spirit. For those in attendance who may not know the name, Larry C. Banks was born and raised in Brown County. He attended Brown County High School, and he made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation during his service in Vietnam. We honor Larry C. Banks specifically today because just a few days ago, on November the 7th, we marked the anniversary of it being 51 years since this ultimate sacrifice was made. Will you please join me in sharing a moment of silence to pay our respects to Larry C. Banks? Thank you. Today we will also be honoring all of our veterans, both living and past, who have served so selflessly for the greatest nation in the world. Thank you for joining us this morning. I do hope that you enjoy what promises to be a very special program. And at this time, we would like to welcome our most honored guests. Please join me in welcoming them as Mr. Brian Galm introduces each era of service. Mr. Galm.
If everyone would please rise. This year we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the ending of World War I in 1918. As the banner for World War I advances, please remain silent. Thank you. And now our veterans, the veterans of World War II. The veterans of Korea. The veterans of Vietnam. the veterans who served in times of peace, veterans of the wars in the Persian Gulf, Iraq, and Afghanistan, and finally the Brown County Honor Guard.
Thank you, veterans. At this time, we ask that you all remain standing as our Boy Scouts post the colors.
Stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave?
Please stand as you are able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. We have a few folks that we want to recognize this morning before we get started. This is a very special moment for us as we pay special recognition to any widows of veterans who have joined us today. If you are a widow of a veteran, would you please stand so that we could recognize you? Thank you for your service. We'd also like to recognize some of our visitors and honored guests who are joining us today. I'd like to introduce one of our great friends in the Indiana State House. Would you please welcome our Indiana State Representative, Representative Chris May. I'd also like to present today's keynote speaker, a very special leader of our Brown County community, Commander Keith Baker. We are also grateful to be joined by our school board members, Board President Steve Miller Jr., Vice President Carol Bowden, Secretary Marlene Barnett, and our members Judy Hardwick and Stephanie Kreitzer. Typically at this time, we are blessed to have Senator Eric Cook join us for this special ceremony. Senator Cook has been an active supporter of Brown County in general and Brown County schools specifically through his countless efforts of legislative service on our behalf. Unfortunately, the senator's schedule is such that he needed to be out of the state today. He wanted me to send his personal regrets for missing today's celebration. Senator Cook is a sincere friend of Brown County schools, and we are honored to have him serving our district, and we look forward to seeing him next year. But this year, we are blessed to have State Representative Chris May joining us. I have sincerely enjoyed getting to know Representative May over the past few years. He is seriously engaged in workforce development for our region. He is active in his support of veterans across our region, and he's also been a great supporter of our work with the Regional Opportunities Initiative. Representative May has prepared a few remarks of encouragement for us this morning, and I would like to turn the podium over to him at this time. Would you please join me in welcoming Representative May?
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for attending today's very special ceremony to honor our service members and the sacrifices they have made to defend our country. Thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to personally say thank you to these extraordinary men and women. This past June, I had the opportunity to participate in the 64th Annual U.S. Army War College National Security Seminar after being nominated by my good friend, Colonel Andrew Kobe Short, who was also attending the War College at that time. Kobe and I graduated together from Bedford North Lawrence High School. Now don't hold that against me. At the 4-day program, we examined current national security issues and exchanged ideas. The seminar helped me gain a better understanding of the defense community and get a glimpse into the lives of the dedicated men and women who protect our freedom. I'm so very proud of Kobe and what he has done for our country, and it goes without saying that he has made huge sacrifices to serve and protect. But what is often overlooked is a tremendous sacrifice made by his family, starting with his wife and children. These are the same sacrifices made by you and our honored guests and their families here this morning. My appreciation for our country's servicemen and women and their families is truly indescribable. You have inspired me with your love of country, and I applaud you for sacrificing your time and talents to serve the greater good. As members of the General Assembly, Senator Cook and I have the opportunity to write and vote on legislation that affects all Hoosiers, as we continually try to make Indiana a better place to live. During the 2018 session, we increased college tuition benefits for veterans, provided resources for those suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, and eliminated the need for disabled veterans with disabilities to regularly renew their disabled parking placard. We also made sailors serving on the board of the USS Indiana, which was recently put into service, to honorary Hoosiers so they may qualify for in-state tuition. All these new laws were brought to the attention of the legislature by your fellow veterans and groups who support those veterans. We know there is more that can be done to support our active veterans, and we reach out to you to give us ideas and recommendations for new laws that may make life better for your military community. Again, I want to thank you for your service to our community and our country, and have a very blessed Veterans Day.
Next, I would like to welcome two members of our local VFW Post 6195, Don Burden and Bill Hamilton. They will be introducing the finalists and the winners of our Voice of Democracy and Patriots Pen essay contests. After the awards are given, the winner of the Voice of Democracy contest will read his or her essay. Gentlemen, looking forward to this.
Thank you, Dr. Hammer. I want to thank you and all the principals and all your staff for a fine program that you put on. Right after our Voice of Democracy gives his speech, I have one more award to hand out today. So I will be back up here as soon as our winner gives his essay. Our Patriot Pen winners. When I call your name, please come down to receive your award. Fourth place is Avery Patterson. I want to mention right now, before we go any further, right after the program is over, please all the winners come down here so we can get your picture, so we can enter your essays at the district level. So please come back down right after the program. Third place for Patriots Pen is Mary Rigel. Second place, Savannah Oden. First place, Leslie Otten. And by the way, their theme that they had to write on was why I honor the American flag. Now we go to the big boys. Voice of Democracy. Why My Vote Matters was their essay theme. Third place, Noah Cochran. Second place, Chloe Robinson. First place, everybody's going to remember him. He won last year. His name is Tanner Bowman. Tanner's now going to give his speech.
Good morning. When thinking of the importance of a citizen's vote, one has to look no further than the United States' founding three principles, which are best summed up by Thomas Jefferson, who wrote in the Declaration of Independence, "All men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." These God-given rights that Jefferson expressed are bestowed upon us because of individuals expressing their right to vote. When an individual steps into a voting booth and casts a ballot, they are placing their trust into a candidate that will make choices that affects the voter's everyday life. We see this in our democratic republic style of government through the appointments to the United States Supreme Court. Voters select the president and voters select the senators. These elected officials may not remain in office for an extended period of time, but they have the ability to impact crucial decisions and rulings with United States law through nominating and voting to confirm a Supreme Court nominee. This is an example of how when an individual votes, they are taking part in something much bigger than themselves, something bigger than many Americans can comprehend. I would like to share a story with you demonstrating how one vote matters. The story tells about a young man from DeKalb County, Indiana, who made the important decision to express his civic duty and vote. While working in the fields on Election Day in 1836, Henry Shoemaker remembered he had to go vote to fulfill a promise he made to Madison Marsh, a candidate for state representative. Just as the polls were closing, Henry cast his ballot for Mr. Marsh. Marsh won by one vote, and after a lengthy recount, it was determined that Shoemaker's ballot was the tie-breaking vote. At the time, the Indiana General Assembly selected our U.S. senators. When the votes were tallied for Indiana's next U.S. senator, Edward Hannigan won by just one vote, and that deciding vote had been cast by State Representative Madison Marsh. Just a few years later, now in Washington, D.C., the Congress debated about military conflict with Mexico. Senator Hannigan of Indiana cast the deciding vote to engage in military conflict. In the years that followed, the future states of the American Southwest were added, culminating the most dramatic expansion of our borders since the Louisiana Purchase, all of which started when one Hoosier farmhand cast his ballot at his local poll site. After hearing the story of Mr. Shoemaker, I realized how one vote, my vote, matters. Thomas Jefferson once penned, "We in America do not have government by the majority. We have government by the majority who participate." This means, as Jefferson described, that the vocal minority who vote out of the whole trumps the silent majority. According to the United States Census Bureau, in the presidential election of 2016, roughly 38.6% of all registered voters failed to turn out and cast a ballot. What if half of those voters had voted? Would the higher accuracy of the election have changed the outcome? It's the responsibility of the American people to pick our elected officials wisely and with certainty, picking them knowing they will do what is right for our nation and will hold the honor of their elected office with pride and honor. Because although the American people realize it or not, their decisions do affect the future generations of Americans, as well as the future state of the Union. It is the duty of the voters to be informed and well educated on the issues and problems we face, and to act with the principles and morals the founders started our great nation with. Because although we might not believe it, but one of us could be the next Henry Shoemaker. So why does my vote matter? Well, at the age of 17, I have not yet gained my civic privilege of voting yet, but I do have a voice. Even though I cannot vote, I am an active, engaged young citizen. I follow local, state, and national politics, and constantly mull over how our ever-changing political climate affects my life. To me, my future vote matters because it delegates my entire life. It affects the taxes I pay. It affects the regulations I have to follow at my place of work. And it affects our servicemen and women who are deployed overseas, as well as our veterans, many of whom have a dire need for VA medical assistance. It also affects, most importantly, the state of our Union. Abe Lincoln, in his Gettysburg Address, triumphed that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Therefore, there are many things we can do to make a difference for our country, but to me, one small step towards making a difference and keeping our government for the people, by the people, is by making our votes matter. Thank you, and God bless the United States of America.
Now you see why he was the winner. Next award I have is a very dear to my heart. It is our Teacher of the Year. This is our first time to have it. Next year we hope to have at least 3 winners, one from grade school, middle school, and high school. So at this time I would like to present Emily Llewellyn.
God thy gold refine, till all success be nobleness, and every gain divine, divine.
Oh, beautiful for patriot dream that sees beyond the year, thine alabaster cities gleam undimmed by human tears.
America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood. From sea to shining sea, America, America.
God shed his grace on thee.
Good morning. My name is Matthew Stark, and I am principal, and I have the honor of being principal at Bryan County High School. The next section of our program is very special because this is the time we recognize our high school students that continue this important military tradition. We are very, very proud of these 5 students, and we will recognize them in just a moment. It should be said that we are proud of all of our students, but a decision to enter military is the next step in your career is a brave one. As for this, we are extraordinarily proud. Students, please stand as I read your names and you'll be recognized. Joshua Perry, Indiana National Guard. Alex Haywood, United States Marine Corps. Jalen Lucas, United States Marine Corps. Robert Perry, United States Marine Corps. Chris Rosberg, United States Marine Corps. Thank you for your service. Next, we have one of the favorite parts of our program. Our Bryan County High School Wind Ensemble will play, and the choirs from the Bryan County Intermediate School, Bryan County Junior High School, and the Bryan County High School will sing The Pride of America. Veterans, when you hear the song that represents your military branch, we invite you to stand as we celebrate your branch of service. Mr. Gom will announce each branch.
The United States Army.
Over hill, over dale, we will hit the dusty trail, and the caissons go rolling along. In and out, hear them shout, counter march and rides about, and the caissons go rolling along. Then it's high, high, ye in the field artillery, shout out your numbers loud and strong. For where you go, you will always know that the caissons go rolling along.
the United States Marine Corps,
from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we will fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marines.
the United States Navy,
Anchors away, my boys, anchors away. Farewell to college joys, we sail at break of day, 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 day. Send Navy out to sea, through swirling foam, until we meet once more. Here's wishing you a happy voyage home.
the United States Coast Guard,
We're always ready for the call. We place our trust in Thee. Through surf and storm and howling gale, high shall our purpose be. Semper Paratus is our guide, our fame and glory too. To fight, to save, to fight and die. I, Coast Guard, we are for you.
the United States Air Force,
Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here they come, singing to meet our thunder. Atom boys, give her the gun. Down they dive, splashing our flame from under. Up on one terrible course, we live in fame, we go down in flame. Hey, nothing will stop the U.S. Air Force.
I'd like to take a moment to thank our outstanding musicians who are assisting with our program today. We sincerely appreciate our Brown County High School Wind Ensemble and Jazz Band, led by their director, Mr. Matthew Finley, as well as our Brown County Junior High School, Brown County Intermediate School, and Brown County High School choirs, led by Mr. Daniel Ling and Ms. Christy Billings. Can we please give our appreciation to these folks? So we have a very special club at our high school. It's the Brown County High School History Club. Our History Club's main goal is to bring together students so that they can collectively learn, read, write, and experience history together. I would like to introduce the sponsors of this club: Brown County High School Social Studies teachers, Mrs. Alicia Adams and Mrs. Emily Llewellyn, who will tell you a little bit about the activities of this club, and will also introduce you to several of their members who will be telling you about a very special project that we will be sharing with you today. Mrs. Adams and Mrs. Llewellyn.
Well, good morning. My name is Alicia Adams, and this is my colleague, Emily Llewellyn. 1 year ago, we stood here and spoke of History Club's accomplishments. Those accomplishments led the National History Club to select our club as one of the top 10 history clubs of the year. We competed against clubs in over 44 states with over 17,000 students participating. That's pretty darn good for our second year. One of the most rewarding activities of the club is the Jeans for BC Vets campaign. Brown County school employees donate money to the Nashville VFW, and in exchange, they can wear jeans to work for the week leading up to Veterans Day. Over the last 2 years, History Club has raised over $1,500 for our local vets, aiding in memorial expansions and scholarships. At the end of the ceremony, we hope you also will participate by donating money to the club members located in the gym lobby. 100% of all funds you donate stay right here in Brown County supporting our veterans. The club has a very exciting year planned. Over spring break, we're headed to Boston to learn about our nation's founding history, and we also have several trips planned to go around Indiana to see other historical destinations here in our own state. History Club members are creating history, and just recently, we've also been preserving history. As noted earlier, this year marks the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. To commemorate this anniversary, I had the pleasure of working with a handful of passionate, creative students to produce a documentary honoring not only those who served in the Great War, but our local veterans as well. Throughout the documentary, you will see original photos of our veterans taken from the website browncountyveterans.smugmug.com. This website categorizes veterans' photos by war, forever preserving our county's long history of service. I would also like to especially thank Mr. Ron Higgins, who helped us along the way to make sure all of our information was accurate and provided valuable insight. Now, it is my great honor to introduce 4 amazing young women, Kara Adams, Isabel Allen, Ashley Masteller, and Lily Deloche. These ladies work tirelessly interviewing local veterans and editing film to capture insights to help us better understand why our local veterans served.
I'm Ashley Masteller. I'm Lily Deloche. I'm Isabel Allen. I'm Kara Adams. And good morning, and thank you for attending the BCHS Veterans Day program. In creating the documentary, we wanted to know what made our brave men and women want to serve in the military. We had the amazing opportunity to sit down in each and every one of them to listen to their stories. Making this documentary was difficult, especially when it came to editing the videos.
We didn't want to cut anything. These are stories we all know were a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to hear and something we will never forget. These stories featured speak to us so much more than our textbook pages ever could. These are men and women from our community who chose a path so much greater than themselves. We all hope you enjoy our video, and on behalf of myself, the History Club, students, faculty, and everyone attending the program, we all thank you for your service.
War is a time where the world calls upon ordinary men to do extraordinary things. World War I was no exception to this. In fact, with the number of men fighting significantly higher than it had ever been before, and virtually all of the nations of the world participating in some way, World War I became known as the war to end all wars. While we now know that it did not end all wars, the sacrifice of the men in the trenches of World War I was not in vain. This was the war to change all wars. The effects were not only seen but felt on an international level, with the total number of casualties at 40 million people. 116,516 of those were from the United States. World War I would end in 1918,
on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. This day would become known as Armistice Day, a time when the United States thanks all veterans for their sacrifice and their service. In 1954, President Dwight Eisenhower declared this day a national holiday called Veterans Day. This year, our annual Veterans Day celebration lands on the 100-year anniversary of the end of World War I. While we honor all veterans on this day, it is important to remember that World War I, like all wars, was a time of uncertainty about the future of the United States. This uncertainty was persevered by the courage and determination of the soldiers serving the country. War invokes a courage not often seen, a courage that truly inspires and defines what it means to do anything to protect your country. This year, we wanted to discover why our veterans did exactly that. What inspired them to protect this amazing country? This is what they had to say.
My name is Henry Marshall, Hank Marshall, served in the Army. I joined out of a sense of adventure, free trip to Southeast Asia, and they pay you too, so I joined.
My name is Philip McGuire, U.S. Army. I was drafted in 1968. I served, and I don't regret it.
I served from the U.S. Army from 62 to 64. I was drafted.
My name is Brittany Miller. I'm 19 years old, and I'm an Airman First Class in the United States Air Force. I joined the Air Force because I felt like it offered a lot of guidance and a lot of stability and a lot of structure that I wouldn't have really had otherwise had I gone to college right away. I've just been very thankful for the friends that I've made, the experiences that I've gone through, and I think joining the Air Force was a very good step for me. That's really why I joined the military.
My name is Brian Martin. I enlisted in the Air Force. My family had all been in the service. My brother was in the Marine Corps, so I spent my time in Thailand working on the fighters.
I am Keith Mudridge. I served in the Australian Regular Army as a private and E4 through the years of 2005 to 2009. The main reason I joined up was because I wanted to, and also there was a huge effort, a humanitarian effort that I could be a part of that just made the world a better and safer place.
My name is John Whitehorn. I served in the Army and I was drafted.
Evelyn Campbell.
What branch of the military did you serve in? Were you in the Army, the Navy?
Navy.
You were in the Navy, all right. And why did you choose to serve?
I thought it would be fun.
Yeah, why was that? Why did you think it'd be fun?
Oh, going on ships. A lot of Navy boys.
My name is Ray Pugh. Served 27 years in the Air Force. And my father was a wounded veteran in World War II. My uncle was in Korea, and my brother was between, actually it was after, in the mid-50s in the Army, so with that I thought it was my duty to go.
My name is Kenny Horsball, and was in the Navy, and was E3. Now why I joined is because my drafting number was coming up. So I thought I'd just join the Navy.
William T. Summers, Marine Corps, in 65 through 68, Vietnam 66, 67. Why? Well, I was drafted.
What was that experience like?
Hurry up, William.
Specialist Joshua Brown from Nashville, Indiana, Brown County High School graduate 2013. I enlisted in the Army in 2015 as a combat engineer. I'm currently stationed with the 101st Airborne Division in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The reason I joined the Army is because I wanted to be a part of something greater than myself and to protect the rights and the freedoms we have as Americans today.
Okay, my name is Erwin Schendel, and I served because, well, I enlisted, but I enlisted because I was drafted. I got a letter just every few months, you know, with induction orders. And I got drafted 12 times before I finally did go in. I told them they would never get me. It looked like they were going to, so I found out that I could enlist for 2 years. And so that was the same amount of time as if I was going to be drafted.
My name is Horace Smith. I was in the 2nd Marine Air Wing for 4 years. Why I served? I'll ask you a question. Why wouldn't you? All these pictures around here are my uncles, cousins, friends I grew up with. They served. This country is a great country. And to do my part only seemed natural.
William Donald Lyon, Navy.
Navy?
So I was going to get drafted in the Army as a private.
Hi, I'm Clayton Fox. I am an Airman First Class in the United States Air Force, and I joined to work on airplanes as an airman.
Okay, my name's Dan Kaiser. I was in the Army, came right out of high school, and I had a very driving urge to fly. The Army offered a program where you could go straight in from high school into flight school. And I did that and became a helicopter pilot in Vietnam.
Hi, I'm James Fox. I'm a Lance Corporal in the United States Marine Corps, and I joined to serve something greater than myself.
William Arthur Taylor. I was in the U.S. Air Force for 4 years. I spent 2 rotations in France, 2 in the Philippines, flying in and out of Vietnam. And I never spent a night actually in Vietnam because they said, spend the night your plane wouldn't be there in the morning.
Leon Rose, Air Force. I joined because one reason there wasn't any jobs there. I got sent to Vietnam for a while, but it wasn't that bad. Heading at times. We all thought we were doing a good thing.
My name is Don Burton. I'm the commander of the VFW. I was drafted. I had 3 other brothers who had already served in the military. And so when I got drafted, it was my privilege and honor to attend also.
My name is Graham Howard. I'm nicknamed Teed. I served in the Army twice. First time, 1944 to 46, in Europe, and World War II. And the second time in Korea, from 50 to 51. First time, I joined it because my family is military. Second time was different. During the first time, I was one of the people that was in Buchenwald. We took over the concentration camp. And after I saw what was there, it affected my life. So I believed that the North Korea was repressive. We would have another Buchenwald had we lost. Serving in the Army was good thing, and I'm still serving. I'm in the Honor Guard in Brown County.
I'm Jerry Bell. I joined because I thought it was my duty to join. Vietnam was going on strong, but I just felt like I needed to join.
My name is Dan Hillen. I was in 12 years in the Marine Corps and 18 in the Army. I went in the Marine Corps out of high school in 1945. When I went in the Marine Corps, about the only thing with the service was about the only thing that was open. And it was right after World War II started.
My name is Brian Blavitt. I served in the Air Force. I joined the Air Force because when I got out of high school, I didn't have money for college.
I'm Private Daniels in the United States Army, and I was asked by Miss Llewellyn, which is a former teacher of mine, to share my input of why I joined the military. It's just been something in my family legacy. I've had relatives in the Civil War, the World Wars, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War, and the surge in Afghanistan and Iraq. I just wanted to follow my relatives' footsteps, my siblings that have joined, and serve along with brothers and sisters.
My name's Robert Mays, and I served in the United States Army in 1969, 1971, and went to Vietnam 1969, 1970. And I went in the Army, I was 19. So when you was that young, when you got drafted, I had a girlfriend that I was deeply in love with and didn't want to leave. But I had a 1966 Chevelle. Man, I didn't want to leave that car either. But you have to. And I wanted to. After I got drafted, I couldn't wait to go. I couldn't wait.
My name is Martin Travelstead. I served in the United States Army from 1957 through 1960 and attained the rank of sergeant. I served because so many others, brothers and sisters, served in the military, and being the baby of the family, I thought it was my duty to serve also. The Travelstead family has represented Indiana quite well in the military.
Hi, I'm Bill Hamilton. I was in the U.S. Air Force for 33 years and I retired as an E8, Senior Master Sergeant, but I was also a First Sergeant. I joined the Air Force back in 1976 because I wanted to get into law enforcement. I thought that would be the easiest and quickest way to go in under that kind of a career field, get the training and experience. And after 6 years of active duty, I did get out. But then in 1985, I ended up going back into the reserves because I wanted to finish out my 20-year career in the Air Force, and ended up staying for 33 years.
My name is Sarah Johnson. I'm a third-class petty officer of the United States Navy. I'm an electrician on F-18, and I chose to join for the benefits.
My name is David Pate. Served in the United States Army. I always wanted to be in the Army since I was young, and I delayed marriage so I could do what I really wanted to do, and I was serving in the United States Army. Wisest thing I ever did next to marrying my wife, Gail. And I am commander of the Brown County Army Guard.
My name's Chet Kylander.
What branch of the military did you serve in?
Navy. I was a seaman. I guess I did it for, you're not going to like the reason, but I did it to keep from having to be in the Army.
Hi, I'm Trevor McTarsney. I'm a E2 31 Bravo military police officer, and the way the meaning is I've had a couple of influential men in my life that have been in the military, and I've always respected them to having the courage to stand up and raise their hand and say, I'm going to do this. I wanted to be proud of myself and proud of what I was doing, as well as I wanted my family to be proud.
Robert L. Gibson. My branch that I was in, I went in as a teenager in the infantry. I enlisted. Oh yeah, I had a brother that was in the Pacific after Pearl Harbor. Why did I decide to do it? Well, there was 5 of us, and we thought we could win the war.
It is thanks to all who have served and to all who are currently serving that we are able to truly be the land of the free and the home of the brave. This Veterans Day, we must remember our fallen veterans and show our utmost gratitude to our current ones and let them know their service is appreciated and will not go unrecognized. To all military personnel, whether it be previous or active, we all thank you for your service.
The physical and mental challenges. I'm Jalen Lucas. I joined the Marine Corps. I want to make my family proud. My name is Alex Haywood. I joined the Marine Corps because I want to make a difference.
My name is Chris Ratsberg. I'm joining the Marine Corps because the camaraderie and brotherhood, I want to be part of the greatest team on earth.
My name is Josh Perry. I'm in the Indiana National Guard.
The reason why I joined the National Guard is because I want to get a head start in life, and also because I've always wanted to serve my country.
I'm not quite sure I've got the words to be able to thank our students and our teachers from our Brown County History Club, but can we please give you just one more round of applause? That was extraordinary. Thank you. Thank you so much. So every year, we are honored to be joined by a veteran who has served our country and is willing to share with us some of his or her testimony. Today, we will be hearing from our keynote speaker, Commander Keith Baker of the United States Navy. Commander Baker has not only served our country, but he has also served our county in a variety of applications, from an elected official to a community volunteer. Commander Baker sits on 14 committees and boards across the county, and he also serves as the president of our Brown County Council. Commander Baker is a great friend of the schools, and along with his wonderful wife, Andrea, who serves as one of our elementary volunteer resource officers, has donated countless hours of time towards advancing the experiences and opportunities given to the boys and girls of this school district. Commander Baker's experiences in the military are vast. He's a graduate of Columbus North High School, Purdue University, unfortunately, and the United States Navy Flight Training Command. Commander Baker served the United States of America for 20 years as a pilot in the United States Navy, with 400 aircraft carrier landings and over 5,000 hours of military flight time logged. Commander Baker was operationally deployed on a variety of aircraft carriers, including the USS Saratoga, America, Forrestal, and Lexington. Commander Baker flew his first airplane solo at the age of 16. He began parachuting at 18, and he earned his Navy wings at the age of 23. Commander Baker is the recipient of 5 Navy Commendation Medals and the Navy Meritorious Service Medal. Commander Baker founded the Smile High Squadron in Atlanta, Georgia. This organization uses surplus military training aircraft to fly children who are battling cancer. And he founded the website vetjobs.com, which is the largest online jobs board for veterans across the United States of America. Commander Baker, you are a living example of a patriot. I am so thankful to you for your service, and so thankful that you will be speaking to our audience this morning. It is truly an honor. Will you please join me in welcoming Commander Baker?
Thank you. We're going to try something different today. I think that I'm mic'd up. This is the most untraditional speech you ever heard, folks. I like to run around and jump up on tables and be crazy because I'm a naval aviator. If you don't know what those are, you're about to find out. I'm so honored to be here today with this group, especially in front of us right now. I wanted to thank Dr. Hammock, the employees and students of Brown County School Corporation, guests and veterans, particularly our 2 World War II veterans that are sitting here, again, Teed Howard and Bob Richardson, truly an amazing group of people. We also have these folks that were identified as going into the service, and I appreciate you as well. But you know, they're not the youngest that we have here today. We have an organization in our group called Sea Cadets, and they have been in training already. And with us today, if you'll just raise your hand, Toby Smith, I see over there. Brian Smith is somewhere around here, I believe, in uniform. Brian, and I think Brandon Phelps. Brandon, are you here today as well? Give them a hand if you will. Each of us has a unique story to tell about our lives and about our military service. My story is no more important than those people sitting in front of you today, truly great Americans. I think maybe Superintendent Hammock just didn't have any names beginning with the letter A when she called me in her contact list. I don't know why I'm up here. I see three groups here today, veterans, I see family and friends and citizens, and I see young people. A bunch of old guys that serve their country, some people who think that was pretty cool, and a bunch of you kids are thinking, who are these old guys again? I know that we have fifth graders. Where are the fifth graders here today? They put you in the cheap seats. Don't worry, you'll grow into the others. You know, it occurred to me that the fifth graders through the eighth graders are sitting here today thinking, hey, really cool, we're in high school. All right. The ninth graders are sitting here thinking, I hope that old guy talks for another hour, I don't want to go to class. Now the cool 10th graders are sitting there going, where's my iPad, where's my phone? You know, the juniors, well, they're just looking next door going, hey, do you think the cool girl saw me a while ago? What do you think? I look good, don't I? But the seniors, where's the seniors? All the seniors. Seniors today, you're scared. You haven't heard back from college yet, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I better pay attention. I might need this information. Naval aviators can be a little bit rowdy. Most of us still think we're 25, even though we live in 100-year-old bodies. But it was an amazing time of our lives. I have with me today another naval aviator, my buddy Tim Sparks from Brown County. Tim, just wave, say hi. Only reason I brought Tim Sparks with me today, because I don't like him. Tim, you got your red flag ready? There you go, he's going to wave a hat. If I tell something that's a complete lie or fabrication, Tim's going to wave his hat. He's a check and balance. I was asked to tell a couple stories, and every year we have this thing, and typically I think, how does that relate to the students? Some old guys ended up there telling a story about, or 100 stories, about what he did back in the Great War. And how is that relevant to you? And how is that relevant to your families? And we'll bring that home in a minute. I guess I was forced by Dr. Hammock. I had to tell a little bit about myself. I don't like doing that. I may weave in one or two stories of my own, and then we're going to talk about you students, and then we're going to talk about these wonderful folks here before you. Don't worry, they'll be out of here soon. You know the difference between an old war story and a fairy tale. A fairy tale always begins with once upon a time. An old veteran telling a story always begins with, hey, this is no kidding, this really happened. I'm not sure which you'll hear today, but we'll work on that. In my home, I have a uniform hanging in the closet. And on that uniform, all kinds of gold braid and medals and ribbons. It looks really cool. Except it doesn't fit anymore, and I didn't want to wear it. I appreciate some of you that have uniforms or partial uniforms. That's important. I did bring the cool hat though. That still works. It's got all kinds of gold braid on it. But after the introduction, I'm not sure I could wear it. I mean, it probably doesn't fit. We'll throw that down there. If I lose my place today and I close this book, it just means I'm going to tell 100 more stories, okay? Last night, Dr. Hammock, I had a unique opportunity to talk about what it means to be a naval aviator to one of your teachers. And I said, you know, we're pretty crazy people as naval aviators. We fly off of ships and we do what you might think are stupid, dangerous things. I said, so I want to impress on the students how crazy naval aviators can be. I said, when I give you the cue, and you're going to stand up your 8th grade class, and they're all going to take paper wads and throw it at me. And he said, well, I can't do that. He said, you know, Doctor, Hammock would get mad at me. The reason I tell you that story is each of us out here in front, we make fun of each other all the time in other services, and what you flew or what I flew, we make fun of each other. But don't you guys try to make fun of us, because we'll circle the wagons and whip up on you, okay? So we tease each other about Air Force or Navy or Army or Marine Corps. Coastie, you're back there. Okay. So I'll give you an example how that works. When that teacher said, I can't do that, that wouldn't be according to the rules, I might get in trouble. I said, you might make a great Air Force officer someday. I don't know if he got that. Who likes airplanes? Who likes veterans? Cool. On October 15th, 1977, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, cold, rainy, overcast evening, I found myself behind a carrier in the Eastern Mediterranean. I had been in the service at that time for 2 years. I had just finished flight training, literally on Tuesday night. Friday morning, I was in the Mediterranean flying as a replacement pilot because the squadron had lost an aviator, and I was sent right from the training environment to a combat type of environment. During that period of time, we were fighting what we felt like was a pretty serious Cold War. The Russians were always trying to push us around, and we were trying to make sure they didn't push the little guy around. Since I got there and I was a new kid, without much experience, joining a fleet squadron, in their wisdom, they gave me some practice landings every day that they could. Now, keep in mind, this is my second day of flying in the fleet, and I'm out. They told me to put my tail hook up and just do some practice landings in the carrier, get 2 or 3 of those, and then land when I was about out of gas. Well, you saw the crazy movie. I don't make any correlation to Top Gun, but I'm fat, dumb, and happy thinking I've got one more landing to make and then I can go inside and eat a cheeseburger and relax. When I get a call for something that was called Screaming Eagle, I didn't know what that meant. I was a new kid. I looked down at my knee board and I tried to call up the notepad that said, what the heck is a Screaming Eagle? Turned out that it was some real world situation that we had an American ship in jeopardy. And I went, oh my gosh, why me? Well, because you're the last one in the air and nobody else can take off. The ship gave me a vector for this problem situation. Turned out that 200 miles away, off the coast of Tunisia, and the Tunisians weren't very friendly to us at that time, one of our intelligence gathering ships was right at the 12-mile limit. You can't get any closer to that, to another country, without getting in trouble, I guess. At that time that evening, there was a Russian warship that was trying to knock our U.S. ship inside the 12-mile limit and capture it. And I was the only kid in the air. The ships, they switched me up another frequency and said, Screaming Eagle, your signal is 180 for 200 miles. Hey, I can do this, I'm going. I felt like the cavalry myself. Well, a few minutes later, I looked down and realized, I don't got the gas for this. What are they doing? I've been up in the air for 2 hours and I got 40 minutes of fuel left. Well, at 520 knots, most I could go on an A7 Corsair, it was about 600 miles an hour. I wasn't a rocket scientist like some here. I wasn't a math major like some here. I started figuring out I don't have enough gas to go do this. And they didn't care. Okay? So I'm calculating, and because I'm a math challenge person, I'll go to Miss Fox. Math teacher, Miss Fox, how long does it take me in the air to get 200 miles at 600 miles an hour? About 20 minutes. Okay. And I got 40 minutes worth of gas. Okay, so I get down there, praying the whole time that there's no ship there to rescue, because all I've got on board me, on board my aircraft, are some machine gun bullets and an empty fuel tank under my wing. The fuel tank looks like a bomb, so I'm hoping the Russian thinks that I'm armed. And it worked. Well, sure enough, I get there and there's our ship trying to get away and this Russian guy trying to get him in to capture him. And felt pretty good. Felt pretty good. And I put that airplane down on the deck, blew it about 50 feet up behind this Russian, popped up over the head and set up a strafing pattern overhead while our guy got away. And I thought, what am I doing here? I'm from Columbus, Indiana. What on earth am I doing here? Each and every one of us, I think, and the veterans, remember a moment in time where we did something that made a difference. Today I will mention this story and later on a really much briefer story that tells you in my life the things that I remember most that made a difference. The thing that day that made the biggest difference to me was that I was going to have to go in the water when I got done, but it was part of the real world and part of what I was trained to do. I just hadn't thought it would ever occur. You know, I just came in to get the benefits and get some flight time. The greatest thing in my aviation career was looking up 15 minutes later, about 7 minutes of gas left, and in the meantime the ship had been sending the cavalry, the real cavalry. And as I looked up, here come 6 A-6 Corsair intruders. Sorry, Tim, your airplane. And 2 F-4 Phantoms to keep the bad guys off our backs, and a really big tanker airplane with about 10,000 pounds of gas, just for me. And some of you may know we have the capability in the Navy of plugging in and taking fuel from other aircraft, and it was the greatest ride home I've ever had. Plugged in the whole way. I landed with more gas than I needed, so it was a great, great day. Let's back up a little bit. When I was a kid, I couldn't figure out why I loved airplanes so much. I was eaten up with airplanes, airplane magazines, pictures, from the time I was really little. I didn't find out till later. I think my dad had a little Piper Cub when I was born. He got rid of it, my brother's here today, Gene, when I was 3 or 4 probably. But later I saw a picture of that Cub, and I realized at some point my dad must have had me on his knee or something, because I was eaten up with airplanes. When I was 6 years old, our father was a construction worker, concrete, and he had a big pile of 2x4 boards out behind the barn, and he used those boards all the time to do his concrete work. He made sidewalks and he made driveways. And Dad couldn't afford much in the way of construction equipment, but he had this big pile of boards that he used. Well, 6 years old, I went out and got a handsaw, and I cut up every single one of them. And I made this great long line of bombers. I made 2x4 bombers, about 25 of them. It took me all day. Set them up out in the driveway, waiting for Dad to come home. Used every board he had. And my mother said, "You wait till your dad gets home. It's going to be tough." My dad came home. I never knew him when he was a pilot, but I knew that he loved it. And when Dad came home, instead of spanking me, he had this great smile on his face. And he congratulated me on having a squadron of bombers and a squadron of fighters. I was 6 years old. My friends and I played Army on the banks. See, I'm trainable, Army. We played Army with our little plastic soldiers. We probably don't do that anymore, you guys, but we'd go down to the creek in the sand and we'd lay out huge armies of all our plastic soldiers. I was a little weird. I would climb up in the tree and throw firecrackers at my friends' soldiers, seeing how many I could blow up. I think that's when I first learned that I needed to be a dive bomber pilot. I wasn't a very good student. In 5th grade, my 5th grade teacher kept asking me why I was drawing over every book I had airplanes drawn on it. Front, back, in the middle. And then she did the greatest thing she could ever do for me. She gave me a book. And I never read much before that, 5th grade. But she gave me a book about Guadalcanal called The Guadalcanal Diary by Richard Tregaskis. It's an amazing book. And from that moment on, I couldn't get enough of reading about military history. And those World War II aviators became very, very special to me. In 7th grade, my teacher was a history teacher most of all, Mr. Harris. And Mr. Harris let me write as much as I could about military history because he encouraged me to write as much as I was reading. The most I ever got out of Mr. Harris was a B-. Last year, Mr. Harris came to Brown County to visit. I had him to my house. He still lives today in Hope, Indiana. And I pulled out one of those aviation themes I wrote in 7th grade. And said, "Mr. Harris, this is the best I ever did for you, sir. Sorry it was a B-." And Mr. Harris grabbed that report he took a big pen and he made it into a plus. So I won, finally. At the risk of sounding terrible and not good for your students, I got to tell them, I was an average student. How many are average students? Join me. Yay! All right, good. Well, you know what? There's hope for average students in the world who really believe in what they're doing and really have a dream and really want to go where they want to go in life. I'm not as smart maybe as I should be, but I worked really hard at it to get to where I got, and I think I represented people in this area pretty well. You know, there were 750 kids in my graduating class in Columbus at that time. It was the only high school. It wasn't a north or an east. And I was proudly number 430 out of 700 and whatever. Proud of my C+ average. You know, I had to go back and get tutors later in life because I didn't know how to do math and science. And for some reason the Navy thought that was important. Mrs. Fox can attest to that missing gene. So fast forward, I learned how to fly in Walesboro. Down where the Cummins plant is now was the Columbus Airport, a little place called Walesboro. At that airport, I went out and cut the grass and pumped fuel in exchange for flying lessons at 15. Started flying and finally got to solo when she said when I was 16. It was a great experience for me. When I went off to college, I couldn't afford to fly anymore. Airplanes were $25 an hour. Parachute jumping was only $6. So I started jumping out of airplanes. The cool thing was you got the airplane right on your way to jump, so hey, it was a good deal. I trained in Pensacola, Florida, which is where all of my heroes that I read about as a kid, I trained in Pensacola where those same World War II aviators trained. I lived in the same barracks. I worked out of the same hangars. I checked my parachute out of the same parachute loft as those guys did in World War II. And I just kept pinching myself saying, hey, you're a kid from Columbus. What are you doing here? The USS Lexington was the first carrier that I got to look at, and it was a World War II carrier. Can you believe in 1977 we were still using an old World War II carrier for training? Great airplane. When you approach a ship that's that small, the pitching deck, it's a little bit scary. And to do it for the first time is even scarier. You know why? They don't send an instructor with you because they don't want to kill two guys. The first time you see the boat, you're by yourself. And they kind of hope you do well at it. So to roll into the groove behind the carrier your first time ever, and your heart's beating really big, and you think, I'm one of a couple thousand guys that got to do this. This is pretty cool. All my heroes were doing this. One of the most fantastic pictures in my mind is that approach on that day in 1976. I had the opportunity to fly with some great Americans. I think there was a discussion this past week about John McCain, maybe here in the high school. John McCain was a friend of mine. John McCain was an instructor of mine. I flew my special weapons qualifications. I can't tell you what that is or I'd have to shoot you. But I trained to carry some rather unique weapons in a different time of the world. But John McCain, who became later Congressman and Senator McCain, and everybody knows who he is, I think. Great guy. And I flew some of my flights with him. One day we got rained out. We had to wait about 3 hours to finish the training mission. And John took me in the back room and said, I want to sit you down and tell you my story. And that's a very memorable point in my life, is having Skipper McCain tell me about his days as a POW, his days as a great American, his days in, doing what he did. Now, it kind of made me happy because John McCain was number 792 out of 794 students in his class in college. So maybe we had a lot in common. Great American. All right, brings me to my last story in my part of this. Remember I said there are times where you think about things or you take a snapshot in your life that you'll remember forever. Well, I remembered that Tunisia thing with that airplane and that Screaming Eagle mission. Nobody else really knew much about that, but it means something to me. I later on became a squadron commander, was in charge of a squadron of fighter bombers, A-7 Corsairs in New Orleans, Louisiana. Boy, what a circus that was. I had 17 airplanes, 3 full-time pilots, and 17 airline pilots. All they did was come to town and party down on Bourbon Street. It was hard keeping those guys straight. but also because of our proximity in New Orleans to Houston, Texas, where the astronauts live. I had 2 astronauts in my squadron that were reservists. They came in and flew a couple times a month. They were great, great guys. My very last flight in the airplane, in the A-7 Corsair fighter bomber, went out, did a low-level flight that's so cool, 200 feet, 500 mile an hour, dropped some practice bombs somewhere, came back over the Gulf of Mexico and met up with a flight of F-15 Eagles and did dogfighting for 20 minutes, hit the tanker, took some fuel. I mean, we did it all. The whole time I'm thinking, this is it, man. This is the last one. I'm going to remember this forever. And as we came in low, we asked for control to let us fly over downtown New Orleans. What a cool place, at 2,000 feet, right over the dome. And I looked out my right side, and on my right wing was Commander Steve Space Oswald. Space had flown, at that time, 2 shuttle missions as the commander of the space shuttle. Great, great pilot. Went on to command our first, as an admiral, command our first Space Wars command, SPA Wars. Out the other side, and I had 2 wingmen that day, was 2-time mission specialist Joe Tanner. Joe Tanner, great American, loved him to pieces. I started thinking, kid from Columbus, Indiana, and I'm leading 2 astronauts back into the break. I better look halfway decent or I'll never hear the end of this. But it was a moment that I cherish and a moment that I will remember forever, that the Navy gave me that opportunity. What I want to talk to you kids about is service and what that means. Service above self, and the concept of service and self. Can you say that to yourself? Service above self and service and self. Some of these people in front of you performed a service above themselves. As I look out, I know most of the combat veterans here. They were amazing people, and they risked their lives. And Sparky and I probably risked them every time we tried to land on the boat. We were so bad. We never knew if we were coming back or not. But service and self is a little bit different than service above self. You may be called to come above yourself, but we have this crazy idea that unless I go into service and risk getting killed, I don't want to go into service. Well, you can go into service and help your country and help yourself with education, experience, travel. So it's okay to have service and self. I want you to remember those 2 concepts. I was going to say at the beginning of this part that Webster defines service as. And then I remember that none of you kids probably have a clue what Webster is. It was an old dusty dictionary that us mediocre students used occasionally. So let's Google it. Google says that service is the act of helping or doing work for someone. Above means at a higher level or layer. And self is a person's essential being that distinguishes them from each other, from one another. Service above self, helping others, higher level, yourself. Now, a veteran is defined by Google as a person who has had experience in a certain field. Well, a second-year player at the Colts could be a veteran. They wear a uniform. I'm not so sure that they have the same level of risk that these folks here had as a veteran. So let's just refer to these guys and gals here as military veterans. A military veteran defined by Google as a person who has served and is no longer serving in the armed forces. Service to others requires that you willingly volunteer to give something of yourself to make life better for somebody else. You have to learn to build a place in your heart to help others. It starts with you guys looking out for the little kids on the bus, or maybe signing up at school to help build a habitat house. And before you know it, it's going to be part of who you are, this service thing. How many of you, show of hands, have been involved with Boy Scouts, 4-H, or church? Raise your hand. Okay? All 3 of those, and there are others, are involving service to other people. Unless you want to sign up for the Marine Corps, you can take your hand down now. It's all right. It's all right. Well, there's a Marine Corps recruiter here today. Where's she at? Hey, stand up. Look how many Marines are on the front row of these 5 guys. 4 out of the 5. She's the one that deserves the medal. If she comes calling at your house, you're going to be Semper Fi and underway. I know that. I told her, I said, we get done talking today, I think this is going to be a target-rich environment for you. Let me put this in better terms. Someday, when you get older, you're going to pull in your driveway, you're going to be tired from work, and you're going to look next door, and the old man next door is struggling with a mower trying to mow their lawn, and they shouldn't be doing that at age 85. Before you go in and sit on the couch and have dinner, have a drink, you're going to go out in the garage, and you're going to get your lawnmower out, and you're going to go next door, and you're going to mow that lawn. And that couple is going to look at you with tears in their eyes, and then you're going to realize how good it feels to help somebody else. You're going to realize what service really means. So how many of you kids, you said, raise your hand, how many have volunteered to help in the community? Quite a few, okay? In the adult cheap seats, how many parents, citizens, how many volunteer, maybe on a regular basis? Okay? Do I need to ask you guys in the middle how many ever volunteered and raised your hand? Probably not, right? I hope that many of you have the honor of volunteering to serve your country, as we have done. But more importantly, make yourself a promise right now that you will volunteer at least once before you graduate here in Brown County to help out somebody else in need. So who are these folks sitting in front of you? Let's take a second and talk about who they are. What did they feel like when they went into the service? Why did they do what they did? We saw this wonderful video that explains a little bit about it. Right now, I want everybody in the student audience, I want you to look out to one of these veterans. I want you to make eye contact and keep looking at them. Veterans kind of turn right and left, wherever. Pick somebody out in this audience and keep staring at them. Okay, don't look away. Now smile at them. Now wave at each other. You know, they were students once. They sat in those same uncomfortable seats, those bleachers you're in right now. They have the same thoughts running through their heads that you have right now. No, I don't mean how many classes you're getting out of. I mean what you're going to do for service. And you're thinking about your options about after high school. What's going to be next for you? For a lot of you, and for those sitting before you, the story there starts to blend together. Again, trade places with your new friends you just made on the court. You talked with your high school guidance counselor, maybe. You attended a career fair. You started asking adults that you know, or relatives, about what they did in the service and what their career path was. You start asking yourself, what will make me happy? How can I get the most accomplished in the shortest amount of time with the money that I have available? Remember, we all sit in the same seats that you sat in. For some of you, and for most of the people sitting before you, a military job made sense at that time, and maybe it'll make sense for you. Maybe you saw a former student in the hallway who came back in uniform to check up on a teacher or say hello. So to cover all the bases, you went and talked to a recruiter. Just like you did for the SAT or the ACT, you took a test to see how you do and what career fields you might qualify for. You started asking other kids in school if they thought about the military. Because why? There's safety in numbers, right? And they can't be a crazy idea if somebody else is doing it. Finally, you made up your mind to serve in the military, but you were afraid to tell anybody at first. What if they thought it wasn't cool? When you got brave enough, you finally shocked your parents with the big news. Mom looked really worried, and Dad had that same little smile on his face of pride. A look that you'd never seen before. There came finally a day when you had to raise your hand and commit to a real contract as an adult. Most likely it was the first contract you ever agreed on your own without a parent close by. Your parents didn't do it for you. That oath is so important to us, and that oath is going to be so important to you. It's the first time in your life that you've ever sworn to something that close to you and that dear to you, and it will last forever. It means something to us, I guarantee it. First Sergeant, call the veterans to order for oath.
Veteran! Ted Hut!
What you're going to see now, what you're going to witness, students, is the first that probably that these people have done since 40 years ago, some of them, 70 years ago, some of them. We're going to reaffirm our oath to our country. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, state your full name, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. First Sergeant, retire.
Veteran! Laddie! Seat!
So after you've done that and you swore in and school started to come to a close, the end of the year approached, you felt a lot of emotions maybe. You felt some pride, you felt some excitement, you felt some apprehension, and a fear of the unknown. Those of you who were drafted, I know that your story is just a little bit different than the volunteerism, but you swore the same oath and it meant the same thing to you. After you did that, you walked around the yard at your house, you drove by to see a few friends, that date approached where you had to ship off, you played with the dog, spent some time with your boyfriend or girlfriend. You had a strong feeling inside that the very next time you were going to see these things, to do these things in Brown County, you'd be doing them as a very different person, an adult. I know that seems a different approach than going off to college, sharing an apartment with friends at Indy while maybe working in a restaurant. In both of these paths, college or a local job, you can come home anytime you want to and mom will help with your laundry. You can raid the fridge. Hey, it's Brown County. You can even drive through McDonald's 6 times and see who's home and who's hanging out. That's going to get old. I can tell you firsthand how both of these feel because I experienced both military and college. It was a constant struggle to work my way through school, but college for me was the only way I could get to my dream of flying. For some reason, the Navy decided you had to have a 4-year college degree. Remember I talked to you about C+ average? It didn't get any better for me, but I made it. No matter whether you start some secondary education at 18 or 22, whether you go in the service before or after college, the feelings and the emotions are still the same. You leave behind one life and you start another one. You know, for the first few months, the military has this really fun camp where you get to march around and yell real loud, called boot camp. And they teach you how to actually make a bed, not just pull up the covers and then tell mom that it's done. They make you eat 3 times a day for 5 minutes total. It's kind of a shock, but I'll tell you something. If 50 million people have done this before, you can do it. Quickly, the scary yelling part is all over and the marching stuff's over, and you come back for a short visit. And what's the first thing you do? You put on a uniform, you head down to the high school to see your favorite teacher, or say hi to somebody, or go see your friends, because you're proud. It's kind of a tradition. And in that defining moment, when you get to tell the world, look at me, I made something of myself, I'm from Brown County, and I've got the world to sail. Each story from that point on takes on a different ending because in life, it's what you make of it from that point on. Each of us have different stories, and you will too. Some of us served a couple years, some 10, some of us stayed in for a career. Some of the people in front of you served some very scary places, some in support, some in combat. A few came home injured, and as you know, some didn't come home at all. We represented our country and our families the best we could, and it made us a lot better people. We seem to have come to a place where military service isn't as important as what it used to be, and I think there's something wrong with that. It doesn't even make the top 5 or the top 10 choices, and it should. I want to challenge you to consider military service because it's a great way to get skills, a great way to get an education, and it's a great way to see the world. It's a tremendous way to kickstart your life. What you and all of us before you have or had to figure out is what is the end result that you want to achieve, and what's a pretty good pathway for you to get there. I'm actually going to stop there and go to the last phase of this because I want you to understand something. We live in a world right now where military service has provided things for you that you don't even realize. We live in a world, even in Brown County, where our leadership, our families, have all been affected by the military in one way or another. There are people in charge of this county that you didn't even know existed. Yeah, you may know Tom Miller was a veteran. Where's Tom? You may know that you've got a teacher that was a veteran. You may know that you've got 3 school bus drivers who are veterans. You have a tech department person and a parapro who are veterans. You're going to rub elbows with them all the way through high school. But what you don't know is some of our greatest leaders. And I'm going to take just a minute and then I'm done. I want to tell you about a lieutenant that worked for me in the Navy who was a young helicopter pilot who was brash and energetic and said when he grew up he wanted to be an entrepreneur. And we laughed at him. He couldn't be here today, but his name is Jeff McCabe. Jeff McCabe founded Big Woods Brewery in Hard Truth Hills. Jeff's a great guy. Ron Higgins, would you stand? Ron is a Brown County graduate of 1986. He was a diesel engine mechanic in the Naval Reserve also from 91 to 96. He, in 2007, became the Veterans Assistance Counselor. Ron is the best one in the state of Indiana. Probably anywhere in the country, I think. No, you keep standing. And Ron has brought our county millions of dollars in veteran benefits for our veterans all over the county. What a great opportunity that it's been to be a friend of him. Second person you may not be aware of. Oh, keep standing. There you go. As I introduce these people, it's an imperative thing that you look at them and kind of get that optic about who they are. The second you heard last year was Mike O'Hara. Mike, if you're here, would you stand for me? Mike, are you still here? Mike O'Hara? Thank you. Mike is one of our true heroes here, and I don't use that word easily. There are people who are heroes. Mike fought at the Battle of Quai Son. You've heard his story before, and he is solely responsible for the name of this gymnasium because of his friend, Larry C. Banks, and we owe him a great debt to his country. Thank you, Mike. Now, you may think that military is not a path to being a smart guy, so I'm going to tell you something. We have among our midst a guy who served 2 years as an enlisted Army soldier, who is a rocket scientist with a PhD in solid rocket fuels. Dick Young, would you stand? There you go, Dick. Dick received a bachelor's degree in applied mathematics and engineering physics in 1969, was drafted 2 years wearing probably that same uniform. Okay, in 72 got his master's in applied mechanics and his PhD in solid state rocket fuel in 1975. He was a professor of engineering at the University of Cincinnati, truly a rocket scientist. I'm proud to know the next two gents because they're two of a kind. Local businessmen, Garth and Adam Nevins. Would you stand for me, please? Now, Garth and Adam, they sat in these same bleacher seats as well. They were athletes. They graduates of Brown County High School. Both have been enlisted in the Navy after high school to learn ship hull repair and equipment repair. And now they own their own very well-known business of Nevins Refrigeration. They've probably been to a house near you. We're happy that they're here today. Colonel Rick Kelly. Colonel Rick Kelly, would you stand, please? Colonel Rick Kelly. If you've ever driven over Kelly Hill, that's the dude right there. It's Rick Kelly from the Felly family. Rick graduated from Brown County High School in 1967, undergraduate master's degree at some trade school up about 15 miles from here. It wasn't Purdue. In '71, after college, Rick enlisted as a jet engine mechanic, and he worked his way up to full colonel in the Air Force Reserve, and including squadron command on 3 occasions, and truly a great guy. Around here, he's been involved with the Community Foundation, with the 4-H Extension Office, just a wealth of volunteer stuff. So thank you, Rick. We are led in Brown County by some halfway decent elected officials, and I'm happy to have the top dog here today. After high school, he joined the United States Marine Corps and became a state trooper. He attended classes at the IU School of Trade. He was a state police detective. He was elected Brown County Sheriff and had an excellent term there. And he became a Brown County Commissioner in 2012. Dave is currently the President of the County Commissioners. Dave? Darren Bird, would you stand if you're here? Darren's back there. Darren was enlisted into, after high school, was a fire controlman on the USS Horn, guided missile cruiser, in electronics. He currently works as a CAD, computer-aided design technician, in skills that he learned in the Navy. Bill Hamilton behind me, who has more bark than bite, was a famous first sergeant, Air Force Reserve, or Guard? Reserve. I get that wrong. That Air Force stuff, you know, it's a sub-service to the Navy. So. He graduated not from here, but from Decatur Central in '75, went in active duty in '76, and had 32 or 33 years in uniform. He also had a tremendous career as a technician and a supervisor at AT&T, skills that he learned in the service. Joe Tinbarge, would you stand? Joe, you're not just a token Coast Guard guy. You're not the guy that checks our licenses when we go hunt little Bambis, are you? You never put us in jail, right, Joe? Joe went to a year of, after graduating high school in Evansville, went to a year of college, and then realized he needed help going to school, and he joined the Coast Guard Reserve, and they paid for the rest of his college, which is a pretty cool way to go. And he serves still as a reservist in the Coast Guard. And that's pretty cool. What you don't know, or most of you don't, he became a diver in 2013, and he has saved more lives in our community and our state than you can imagine as a diver. Thanks, Joe. Recently, we had President of the Town Council. If you could, Bob Curlin is here, I think. Bob Curlin after college. Bob, are you back? There you go. After college, Bob Curlin served for a few years in physical therapy in the Army at Fort Hood, Texas. He spent 32 years in retail and town council for 12 years. What a leader he was for the town of Nashville. Thank you, Bob, as president of the town council. The next guy is pretty questionable. He graduated from Southport High School in '66, University of Indianapolis in '70. He enlisted in the National Guard in the 38th Infantry Artillery. He was a respected school teacher before he went back and got his master's in education and became a supervisor and principal. Once you get to the principal thing, I'm not so sure how much you're on the side of the kids, but I guess you're all right. Former principal of Triton High School, became the Brown County Assistant Superintendent in 1995, and our superintendent in '07, Mr. Dave Schaefer. Dave? Service above self and service and self. Remember, these gents started a lot of their education in the military or continued it. It's important that you remember that. The next guy is pretty important to me. He's another Columbus High School graduate, 1968. Briefly at Indiana University until the draft got him. Became a medic. He was a medic for nearly 4 years. I have so much respect for him. He worked his way through college after the Army, working nights full-time as an X-ray technician, graduated Purdue University in 3.5 years with nearly an A average. And coming from Columbus, Indiana, I can say that a dream when you're a mediocre student like the next person is one you really got to work for. This man retired as a doctor in 2017, founded a business up in Indianapolis. He is my personal hero. It's my brother, Dr. Gene Baker. Whenever I meet somebody from Wanamaker or New Palestine, I say, do you know that quack up there, Doc Baker? They go, yeah, how do you know Doc Baker? And I go, well, I'm prettier than he is and a lot smarter, but he got the math gene and I got the reading gene, so I think together we kind of work out. Tony Sisko is with us and up on the front row, and I'm hoping you never meet anybody here. I hope you never meet Tony firsthand. Tony, stand up. Tony Sisko is our jail commander. Captain Tony Sisko graduated Martinsville High School, enlisted in the U.S. Army. He was in Iraq in '03 and '04, Army National Guard, '97 to 2004 also. Been in law enforcement since 1987, and what a great asset he has to our community. And again, don't go visit Tony unless you really need to. Thanks, Tony. You're going to find some amazing people in this community who you didn't know were veterans, and one that's going to surprise you right now. This guy went to high school in New York. He joined the United States Marine Corps in 1979. He was in there until 1981 as a corporal. He was an infantryman with a rifle, an amazing guy. You know him as your pastor of New Life Church, Tim Conboy. I can tell you, kids, don't mess with the preacher. Our chief of police in town, Ben Seastrom, is a graduate of Brown County High School in 1995, became a Navy Seabee, enlisted person, and has done extremely well for us. Ben, would you rise? There you go, Ben Seastrom. Our former coroner and recently retired fire department person from the Indianapolis Airport, Robbie Ayers. Robbie, are you with us today? Brown County graduate. Lieutenant Colonel Chuck Yeager. Stand up, Chuck. How is it that a guy named Chuck Yeager is not a pilot? I don't get that. He graduated Avon High School in '85. Went to college, Western Kentucky University. Believe this or not, he was a diver, scholarship diver off of the high boards, I guess, in college. But he was in ROTC in college, and Uncle Sam came calling, and he liked it. He spent a whole career as a military policeman, serving in Iraq, Qatar, Guantanamo Bay, retired last year. But here's what you don't know, and you should know, is that he is on the board of directors for Do Something Brown County. He's an amazing man that really cares about our drug abuse problems in our county and is working tirelessly to fix those. Thank you, Chuck. Because you old guys are challenged, there's only 4 more, so it's okay, we're done. Next is my friend Rick Fox. Rick, stand up for a second. Oh, you are already? Oh. Sure. Now, Rick Fox was the IT guy here for a while. He's our IT director in the county. Real smart guy with electronics. He's the go-to guy whenever we need help in this county for IT stuff. Pretty cool. Now, Rick and I went to high school together. He was in 72, I graduated in 71. The cool thing about Rick was an amazing gymnast on the state champion gymnastics team. Rick was on those still ring stuff, and he had muscles that you wouldn't believe. I don't know where they went, Rick, but he was heavily recruited and had initially a scholarship as a gymnastics participant on a team in college, and did real well with that for a while. And then he went in the Navy to learn electronic skills, and those are skills that he helps us with every day. And he was former enlisted on a helicopter. He was a helicopter air crewman. Thank you, Rick. Patty Frinsmeyer. Patty, I can't see, but I know you're back there. There you go. Patty Frinsmeyer. Patty Frinsmeyer, class of 83, Brown County High School. She joined the Air Force in 88 to learn meteorology. She briefed pilots on the weather conditions, and she lied to us every time. After the service, Patty has worked a number of jobs around the county. She's in real estate. You may know her as the new owner of Hills of Brown Cabin Rentals. Huge staff, huge business. Patty. Patty is head of our Brown County Leadership Program and also serves as the adjutant of the American Legion and on the Honor Guard, and she does everything for us in the county. Dave Pate, also Honor Guard. Dave, would you stand? Dave? Dave is Brown County High School, class of 73, active duty Army, 73, 76. He works for Indianapolis Power and Light, an exceptional technician, and we're so happy to have him as the commander of our Honor Guard. Thank you, Dave, for your service. And my friend Tim Sparks has not thrown the exaggeration flag once today, and I appreciate that, Tim. Tim, would you stand up? Tim flew the whole career like I did, only he flew the A6 Intruder, a great airplane. We have a lot of rivalry between the two airplanes, but that's okay. Tim graduated from Brown County High School in 1972, Purdue University in 1976. Go Boys! He was in college ROTC. He was a combat veteran of Desert Storm. We came back together again and worked in my airline career, my second career. Tim recently retired, as I did, at Federal Express as airline pukes. And you are an MD-11 captain, big wide-body captain, and he has a bed and breakfast business in our county. Tim Sparks, Great American. The 3 gentlemen I'm going to mention now, you can all 3 stand up if you're still here. Don is behind me, Don Burden. Steve Lowry, if you're here, would you stand up? And Hank Marshall. Hank's back there somewhere, I think. Good, good. Steve is the commander of the American Legion, inspiration for us veterans in the county. Former enlisted, was assigned to Germany. Dan Burden from Sheridan High School at 62, was a Vietnam soldier. He got out in 67 and is industrial equipment repair. And then brings you to Hank Marshall. Of the heroes that are here today, Hank Marshall is one of the best. Hank Marshall attended, after Mitchell High School, attended Hanover College for 3 years, and then Uncle Sam called. Hank Marshall was a combat helicopter pilot in Vietnam, and I can imagine the things that he did and saw that I owe him my eternal gratitude for what Hank Marshall did for us. And Hank is our commander of the Vietnam veterans. And Hank, thank you for being here. That brings us to a close, gentlemen. You can have a seat. Thank you. Your knees still work there in Evans, boys? You basketball players have weak knees. I know. So I'm going to finish with this. We talked about service above self and service and self. You can do both, kids. You really can do both. And the military is a place where you can have a great career. I want you to do something after high school to get that education. I don't care if it's college, I don't care if it's OJT, vocational school, or the military, but you need to get it. Find something in your heart that you can give to make this world a better place. Always have room in your heart for others. The veterans we honor here today sure did. They served each of you. Repay their sacrifice by paying it forward. I thank you, and I pray that God richly blesses your life.
I think it can be said that on behalf of Brown County, we are so gifted to have our own top gun in Commander Baker. Thank you so much, Commander Baker. That was really extraordinary. All right. Oh, well done. Well, you see that flag?
We called them fat guns.
Okay, perfect. Good stuff. All right. I think we're going to move straight into our choir with their next piece, which is God Bless the USA.
If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand to say, and I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
be an American where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Veterans, we hope we communicated to you all today how grateful we are for your service and how much we love you. We started our program off this morning remembering the man for whom this gymnasium is named, Larry C. Banks. And it's appropriate that we end today's program by remembering him once again. Larry C. Banks was just a boy from Brown County who I would like to think would be sitting right here in this space, perhaps seated right next to his best friend, alongside all of you extraordinary service members, were it not for his making the ultimate sacrifice for our country during his service in Vietnam. Larry C. Banks was just a boy from Brown County who will serve forever as our closest reminder of the brutality and heartache of war, coupled with an even closer reminder of ideals like honor, valor, service above self. Larry C. Banks was just a boy from Brown County who wasn't given the gift of coming home, but we hope to do right by his memory, to forever remember him as our hometown hero. Larry C. Banks was just a boy from Brown County whose life ended before he could advance his own education, but will forever be honored in a scholarship that is awarded in his name and has impacted the lives of so many so that they can advance their own education. Larry C. Banks was just a boy from Brown County who, like all of you brave men and women who are sitting on this gym floor today, served our nation so that we can experience the freedom that we are blessed to experience today. I am thankful for Larry C. Banks, and I am thankful for all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is our great hope that this program will bless you a fraction of the way in which you have blessed us. God bless you all. At this time, I'd like to invite the Boy Scouts up to formally retire our colors. Boy Scouts. You may be seated. Veterans, when the music begins, our students will greet you and will dismiss you by rows to the auxiliary gym where you will have your picture taken. All of our veterans, our widows, and our families of our veterans and widows You are all invited to stay for a luncheon provided by Brown County Schools, which will take place in our auxiliary gym. Thank you so much for being here today. Happy Veterans Day, everyone.
High school students, you are dismissed to your 5A lunch or 5th period class. High school students, you are dismissed to 5A